Hello everyone, this is Mac with Emergency Reporting. I'm the lead trainer, and welcome everybody to today's version of Virtual Thursday. And actually today what we're covering is the BI Basic is going to be the topic from today. So we'll be going over these. I'm having a little trouble with the screen for some reason. Hang on just a second, guys. Okay, now. All right, so we've got the BI Basic going on today. The presenters today, of course, is going to be myself. Michael Bazzoni with one of our regional trainers is also on, be helping answering questions, as will I. Kevin Clausen is the product owner for the BI team. And then Derek Rickard is going to be presenting today, and also he's with the development team. And then David Keeney with the development team is also on today. So we'll be able to get your questions answered and show you the new feature we have with BI Basic. Also, remember other training opportunities we have with emergency reporting. We have our virtual Thursdays, as y'all are on today. Then we've got our online, we've got 3-hour blocks, and they're customized to meet your needs at whatever department you need. Now that can be 3 hours and even 1-hour blocks. If you get in touch with your sales personnel, they can assist you there. Then we have on-site training that you can shoot an email to training support@emergencyreporting.com and get a quote, or you can get that also through your sales reps in your area and get a quote on us coming out there to your department or location, even with you know, and sort of training whatever you need at your facility. So whatever that is, you can put that in there and we can help you with those areas. And then our regional training academies, which we'll talk about next, and we're getting into them. We're actually the next one up is Jacksonville, Florida. It's March 17th through the 19th. So that is also on your login screens. You can click and go on and register for those, for any of these. Jacksonville is going to be our next one. Then we'll be in Kansas City, Missouri. That's up near you there, Michael, up in his back door, April 7th through the 9th. And then we're going to be in Spokane, Washington, May 5th through the 7th. And then we have one in June in Temecula, California, and that's for all of our DOD and Ultra customers. This will be specific to them. We'll be in California, June 23rd through the 25th. And like I say, if you want to go to any of these, you can go to emergency reporting eventbrite.com and register for those and pick the one that's closest to you. But also you can get to those sites, our to Eventbrite on page. We'll have that in that scroll bar, so you can go over and scroll through them, right and left arrows there, and get to the one you're wanting to register for and click on it and go in and register. And this is a little more information about the different trainings we have. We have the Customer Success Training and Learning Center, regional training academies, and then remember, you can always get in touch with us at training@emergencyreporting.com. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to pitch it over to Derek to start our class. Okay, Derek, it should be coming to you, brother.
All right. Might be coming to me. Let's see.
Yeah, should be there.
Go on screen. Hello, everyone. I want to let you know when it's up. Okay, we're good. We're all seeing it. My name is Derek Rickard. I'm on the BI team here at ER. We're going to be going over some of the recently launched BI basic stuff, and mainly this will be for navigation and sort of tips and tricks. We had a pilot program where we got a bunch of great feedback, and we're still getting feedback now, and we use that for improving our reports and just kind of giving you a better experience. So first off, I just want to show you where this is. It's going to be the analytics tab on the bottom. I'm sorry I have this collapsed, but the analytics tab here, and then you can just go to BI Basic on the top. And what you'll see here are a couple cards. Right now we just have incident and EMS reports in here. But this will be the area where you'd see any cards for any new reports coming. It'll just show up here, and you just click one, and it's going to open up. Right now we're using Power BI as our embedded experience, so that might be why you see the Power BI in the meeting invite. But so here I'm going to just give ourselves some more real estate. I wonder if I can collapse this. Do you know if I can collapse this? Slide it down. Okay. All right, so we're kind of going to give some lay of the land stuff first. Up top, of course, we just have our normal ER stuff, but I want to point out this send feedback button here. This will go directly to the BI team, and this is great if you have like, hey, this would be wonderful to see this here, or basically any sort of feature requests. Right now we can use the send feedback button. It will send anonymously, so if you do want to have your contact information in there, you'd have to include it. But of course, it's not showing in this one because I'm in our development environment. So, but yeah, you can just click that and send any sort of feedback you want, and include your contact information if you'd like. If you're looking for support, you can actually still contact support for, if you're running into a problem with it or if it's not doing what you're expecting. But yeah, the feedback button is something that we will be looking at and definitely using for prioritizing our features. Yeah, specifically, if you do want to be contacted, an email address would be great in our send feedback area. So as far as the report, right now we have, I have this incident count report open. So up top here, we just have the report name. Usually you'll see your department name here, but we just don't have that in our development space. So I just have my last refresh. This will be really important for understanding how old the data is that's showing in the report. And then we just have some measures up here that we can reference as we're interacting with the report, and sort of, that those just stay there to understand the context in which you're in. On the left here, we have some navigation stuff. So we have slicers, which can actually be used to filter all the reports. And in the slicer area, we have some calendar ones that we can use. You can either use the buttons here, or you can actually just hard code, hard type in what numbers you're looking for. To remove any filters, you can use this eraser button. That'll clear the selections on a filter. So this actually went all the way back to 14. I'll just change that back to 18 now. So that's our dates filter there. We also have a bunch of drop-down filters that you can use. Something to notice that when you click on these filters, it does a single selection. So it's only one at a time. And if you want to do multiples, you just hold Control, and then you can click multiples. So you can do that, and then you can just collapse that area, and then now you have department apparatuses filtered on multiple things. And once you have the selections you want on your slicers, you can just collapse this, and we can now see that we're filtered at 325 incidents for the filters that we picked, and all of our visuals are reflecting the 325 incidents. Something to note on, more things to note on this left side is we have a details tab. So at any point, right now I can click details and I can see my 325 incidents and what information points we pulled from that. I'm just waiting for it to render. There we go. So this just has basically a clear, just a table with all of our information in it. So no visual in this, but it will have a little bit more information. I'm going to collapse that back down. And we also have this pages button here. This will bring us to different report pages. So right now we're on our incident counts, and we can click days and times and go to a completely different tab that shows our days and times. Same idea where we have important measures across the top, our navigation on the side, but all of these visuals have changed, and they're just different things. The slicers that you picked in the first tab, though, will persist over to the second tab. So whatever changes you make here will stay the same for the whole report. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to our incident counts, and then show a little bit about interacting with these various visuals. So another thing that I forgot about, the last thing on the left side, is this reset button. So when you do get into this report, you might get to a point where you're like, well, I'd like to go back to where we first started, but I don't remember all of the filters that I did. You can just hit this reset button and it'll bring you right back. So this brings me back to when we open the report, these are the filter selections that were on it, our 52,000 incidents, for example. Now this data here will look a little bit funny because we are in our dev environment and all of everything's obfuscated, so it won't look exactly like your reports. I will say too that all of these visuals are based on some assumptions of how data is coming into the ER system. So things might look different. For example, if you didn't have any shifts listed, which that wouldn't be the case, but if you didn't have any shifts listed, this wouldn't show much of anything interesting. It would just show one bar of, because everything would be kind of collapsed into one shift, as an example. So really it's based on the information you put in, and you might even find things that you might see as like, oh, I can go and correct that in my ER system and it will flow through to our BI. Of course, based on the last refresh. So into the visuals, you'll note here that the visuals are interactive. If you hover over any point, it will show you more information about it. And you can actually click any point on this bar chart and all of the other visuals are going to update. So this 2,500 incidents that I'm seeing on my tooltip has now been filtered for the entire page because I clicked on that. So actually any of the visuals can act as filters for the rest of the page. The only caveat is that the filter doesn't persist. So when I'm clicked on here, I just went from November to December. When I click on the next month, the filter removes from the last one I just clicked. So in order to get it to persist, again, to multi-select, you just hold Control, and then you can select multiple months, and you can see that is now persisting. So there's now 7,000 incidents for these 3 months that I selected. And that same thing goes across visuals as well. If I were to want to include, just look at B shift for these 3 months, I'd have to hold Control and click B shift. And so now there's filters here that are persisting with the B shift filter, as opposed to if I were to not hit Control, not hold Control on the keyboard, and I were to just click A shift, it's actually going to remove all of the other filters and just look at A shift. I'm going to do that right now as an example. So all of our month filters and all of our month selections went away because I wasn't utilizing the multi-select functionality by holding Control. So that's the first part, and in getting to know that every aspect of these visuals can act as a filter is nice. So for the bar charts, any of the bars will act as filters. For even for ones that have legends, the legends will act as filters as well. So you can select any of those, and the rest of the screen will update. For this visual here, and I'll unfilter. For this matrix visual here, any of the lines will act as a filter as well. So you can select one, just the 4 series here, and we can see everything update for that 4 series. And even if you were to drill down into these, into the details here, any of these subcategories can also act as a filter. So that's one part. So kind of just getting the lay of the land and seeing like, okay, these visuals are here. All of the elements of the visuals can act as filters to each other, and to have them persist, you just hold Control and you can do a multi-select within one visual or select across visuals just by holding Control. So yeah, that's our sort of how things interact with filters. The next part is the more options part. So we have extra functionality here where in the upper right of the visuals, you'll see different types of buttons that will appear as you hover over the visual. So these buttons we'll just go over right now. All of them have this guy here. This is focus mode. And what focus mode does is allows it to go full screen. So for that one, I picked the top stations one because I couldn't see the whole visual in the little tile that was there. So I opened that up and now I can see the top stations and all the numbers that are in there. To go back, I can just hit back report that report there. And so that works for any of these. So focus mode is great for any of these. You can still do the selecting that you can when they're not in focus mode, and when you go back to the report, those will stay there. Yeah, and that's what focus mode is. The next one is this ... And all of the visuals will have the focus mode and the ... Some of them will have more, and I'll go over these buttons in a second. But the ellipses here can be used to export data, which is really nice. If you want the information out of this in Excel, not necessarily the chart, but the data underneath it, you can just export the data. You can choose Excel, or you can even put it into a CSV. You can see there's different maximums there in terms of export. But yeah, once you export it, it will just download a file. So you can see it's exporting data here. And that file is now exported for me to open up and do what I'd like with it. So that can happen, you can select whatever filters you like, and then you say, okay, I'm interested in this information, so I can export it from this chart if I want to know the by month information, or I can export it from the shift chart if I want to know the shift information, or I can even go to the details tab and export all of the details there using the same functionality, the export data functionality. So more options on our ellipses here. We also have this visual table. Visual table is very much like focus mode, but it also includes the data table with it. So here it went to full screen. We see our visual, but down the bottom we see the numbers that are associated with it. This will be more interesting for some visuals than others. For example, this one here, if I were to go into visual table, there's going to look the same. There's nothing interesting there because it already is a table. But for any of the other charts and graphs, it usually gives you something a little bit more, especially for this one where the numbers are rounded and you wanted to see the numbers without rounding. Now we can see that that's going on here. And one other thing in here, for this one anyway, is this spotlight function. You probably won't be using this that often, but if you are giving a presentation to people and you want the focus to be on one particular visual, you can use this spotlight and say, okay, this is the visual we're looking at. Now we can talk about it and then remove the spotlight if we want to move to other things. It was just a default thing in there, so we figured we would leave it in. So that's for those. Now, the ellipses also can expand depending on what you have in the visual itself. So I'm going to go down to this, I think I'll go to this incidents one because it's a nice one. I'm going to use this more options, and now you can see that there's a few more things that popped up, and these are all sorting options. So we can actually, right now this is sorting ascending by station, and if we wanted it to be by number of incidents, we can change that there. And actually maybe we'll make it sort descending. So now we can see, okay, it's sorted descending by number of incidents. And when we go into focus mode, we have an even better view of what's going on there. And actually, if I go to visual table,
Sorry,
we're in a webinar right now. Okay.
David needs some support.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. So here I went into the visual table mode. I just wanted to show this because there's a couple more features here that you can use for sorting, since that's what we were talking about here. That drop down where you can change ascending or descending or what you're sorting by can also be controlled by the visual table. So you can select station just by selecting the column header. Oh, and maybe it's not working in this visual. I think I'll have to go back and show you in a different one. I'll show you in this one here. Here we have the same idea. We have a table here. If you wanted to change the sort order, you can just click the header and it will change the sort order. So this is changing it by incidents and descending as noted by this upside down arrow. The other way, if I wanted to be ascending, I can just click it again, and now you can see it's ascending by number of incidents. So all that can be changed just by clicking the titles. So in this case, for this visual, we don't actually have to utilize these sort functions because we can just get the same thing out of clicking the column titles. I'm just going to hit reset so we can be back to where we started. Okay, and then the next thing I want to show you is just these extra buttons that pop up for some visuals, but not all. So those ones don't show up for this incidents by month, but they do show up for this here. And that's because this visual has drilling capabilities. We have multiple layers of data available to us in this visual. And in this case, this, I mean, you're all probably familiar with what's going on here. This is our incident series, and we can drill down into our next layer of data just by hitting the plus sign at any of these. And this is pretty standard functionality. Notice that when I got into here, our column kind of started to bleed over and we can't see our data. That's something you can adjust right here. And you can just adjust the column width. And now every time you open it up, it will persist. So that's one way where we can, I'm sorry, I'm making sure that the sound is, people can hear the sound okay. Is everything going on okay for the audio?
Make sure that the TV is turned on.
Okay.
Hey guys, messages if you're getting any bad feedback, please.
Okay, so yeah, for drilling for this visual, it's easy to see. We can use the plus signs to drill, but we can also use these buttons up here, and they have slightly different functionality. So I'll show you that. I'm actually going to start with this second button because this first one's grayed out, and this is a drill up button, which we're already drilled up as far as we can go. So this second button is a drill down, and you can see that when I hover over it, it says click to turn on drill down. And so now it's just enabled. So what that means is that wherever I am in here, if I click, instead of it acting as a filter to the other visuals, it's going to drill down to the next level of whatever I'm clicking. So I'll hit these service calls. And now it's just drilled down to service calls. All the other visuals is updated as well as the measures on the top of the screen. And if I want to go into specifically these 60 calls, I just click again, and now it goes down into those 60 calls. So that's what that drilling button does. It makes it to where the behavior is, when you click, is it actually drills down into the next level of detail. If I try to go one more, it won't do anything. It'll just sit there because there's no more layers of detail. To go back, you can hit the drill up button. So now it's useful for us because we are drilled down into a different layer. And now we're back to our viewing all of our incident series. So this is great for drilling into one layer of your data. But if you wanted to see multiple or all your layers of data at once, you can use these other two buttons. I'm going to show this one first, which this is the pitchfork is what I call it. This one will allow you to expand all of the data down one level and keep the hierarchy. So when I click that button, I see fire, and then I see all of the 2-digit series under fire. And then I see our 2 series here and all the detail under that. And I can actually even go one more to see all the way down to our 3-digit codes. And if I'm feeling a little claustrophobic with this section, I can also open it up to full screen. I can even adjust the column size, so I can get something that's a little bit more readable for me. One thing to note is if you do adjust the column size in focus mode, when you go back to the report, that column size is going to persist and we can't see it anymore. So you'll have to change it back if you want to be able to see it in the report mode. And then I can just make that minor adjustment here. So that's the pitchfork, and that's really nice to use if you're wanting to maintain that hierarchy, and even when you're doing your sorting and that kind of thing, those persist. The hierarchy persists. So what it's showing you is the most frequent single-digit series is the 3 series, the EMS one, and we see that as showing up first, and then it shows the hierarchy underneath. So we see all of the 2-digit 3 series here, and then followed by the 3-digit codes. And every one of the pieces of that hierarchy are sorted descending. So I'm gonna drill up here, and I'll show you the last button, which is kind of a cool feature because it actually allows us to go to the next level in the hierarchy without maintaining the hierarchy. So I'm going to go ahead and click this once, and you'll see that the single digit one just went away, and now we are in the 2-digit ones. I'm also going to go to focus mode just so we can see it a little bit better. So yeah, we just have the 2 digits, and you can note that they're intermixed here. I'm going to go one more down so we can just go right down to our 3-digit codes. So we're not seeing the hierarchy anymore. These are just our 3-digit codes. If I sort descending by number of incidents, you see that here's a 3 series, the next one's a 5 series. So that hierarchy isn't maintained here, but you could use it for something else. If you're wanting to look into your data just at the 3-digit level, that's how you could do it. So I'm going to just adjust this back, go back to my report. And now if I have this visual here, how I'd like it, I can now interact with the data the same way I had been, where I can just use these as filters. I can hold control of the multi-select, and everything updates as expected. So I'm going to hit this reset button. And now we're kind of back to where we started. So just to kind of give it a recap, we have the report name and title up top. We have our last refresh here, our important measures up on the top. On the left side, we have navigation, and that might change. We might add more buttons to this, I should say, in the future, because we might get more features that we need to add in here. And then we have our visuals here. So I think that about covers the navigation and sort of what things you're able to do with these visuals. We also, with our pilot program, we had a good amount of feedback, and probably one of the most popular ones, and I'm just going to reiterate this again because I've talked about it already. The most popular one is multi-selecting. So the question of how do I multi-select was just hold control and select what you'd like. That, like I said, it works across visuals, it works within one visual, it works in the slicers. So there's that one. Another one that we got was oh, my data doesn't match. And so that could be from a bunch of different things. And I wanted to say that in this webinar because it's so common that we could get a mismatch in our BI versus our ER data. And that could be from something as simple as, well, the last time it refreshed, if you're looking for incidents that you put in an hour ago, they're probably not going to show up because right now this only refreshes once a night. It could be from filters that were applied that you just weren't aware that you had applied them here. It could also be because right now we only have reviewed and completed incidents here, and we don't include any imported incidents. So that's another example of why data might be a little mismatched. So those are our big 3 right now. And if you're still experiencing a mismatch there, that's where I direct you to support, and we are looking into those problems and trying to correct them, even if it is something like a filter's on, or if, it's reviewed and completed versus maybe some incomplete incidents. We want to make that more intuitive for the users. So any feedback or any support questions, we are looking at every single one of them to make sure that we're giving our users the best experience that they could have. So that's our incidents reports, and like I said, we have an EMS report as well. And shortly here, within the quarter, we'll have training and occupancy out as well. So I think that about does it for our tour. And I probably should have been asking if there have been questions as we've been going along. So this is maybe a little bit late, but are there questions that we've seen come in, Matt?
We do have a few. One was asking about.
Oh, I'm realizing that our volume might be down here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
One was asking about if this part that we're showing now is going to be part of the full fire, or is there an extra cost to it? And I told him, from my understanding, the basic will be part of the full fire package. So this is part of the system we're giving you. And then you might just mention a little bit about the Pro that will come out, what it's out.
Yeah. So right now, anything under BI Basic is just going to be included. Basically, if you have the module, it's going to be turned on. So EMS reporting won't show up unless you have EMS module, but it will show up as just part of that package. In the future, what we have on our roadmap is a BI Pro. And essentially, that is where you can author your own reports based off the data models that are feeding this report or these reports. So, or you'll be able to, modify the existing reports and save them in your own workspace. So that's something that we're working on right now, and we're working on getting that functionality going. But it's definitely down the road. We're getting our devs in gear for that, and working out all the all the interface stuff that makes that easier for our users.
Okay, and I also have one more. Michael Zucker here was talking, so I put a date range in on January and February of this year, and only see 6 incidents. There are no other filters, just said he was confused.
Yeah, and that's something that, so for this year, I mean, of course I can't check it on this one because this is not their account, but that'd be a great example of something to call support about, and they can troubleshoot live, like we can go through it live, and if we're still running into problems, we'll look into it and see if there's some inadvertent filter that has been applied, not on your end, even on our end, and that's something that, this BI endeavor is a living and breathing machine, or beast, I should say, that it's a group effort in trying to get this refined. So we had our pilot program, and we got a lot of those worked out, but with so many accounts and so many different stations and fire departments, we expect that there's going to be some other things that we haven't thought about. So like I said, we're listening for that send feedback button or contacting support. We have our eyes on it. So
yeah, I just sent him something to send me an email after. Michael, you should have just got that. Just let me know if you've got that, and we'll get in and look at your account and see what's going on. Also, I guess one question is it possibly because, I mean, does all incidents have to be completed before it shows here, or does it show complete and incomplete?
Completed too. So right now it's completed and reviewed, and it doesn't have any imported incidents. Now that's not something that, I mean, that's just something we did on this first pass, and if we get a bunch of feedback that says, no, we'd like to see incomplete or something like that, then we can definitely go down that road.
Okay, so Michael, that could be some of it. Just make sure all of them have been completed or reviewed. See if your numbers change there.
But Kevin was just saying that a few people asked if imported incidents will show, and right now that's no, and they're not included in here. But that is, again, something that we will look at with our feedback. And the reason why we decided to not include them at first was that there are so many differences depending on what data points are going to be fed in with an imported data. We don't really have the same required fields when we import data than when we're actually punching it into our system. So it's based on some pretty big assumptions that the data is sort of the same structure, and we can count on that for imported incidents. So the short story is we'd have to troubleshoot. We'd have to look into that and look at the data quality of all of our imported data to see if we can come up with something meaningful.
Yeah, I see a lot of the data imported questions, and then we also have one talking about the time frame that we're as far as why is it only pulled once a day, and is there plans to possibly change that or whatever?
Yeah, and that's a good question, because the reports in the reporting module here in ER, those are live, hitting the production database. When we look at BI reports or analytical reports, when we're looking at trends from history, typically the sort of industry expectation is that we're looking at years of data at a time and trends over weeks and months, and and what's going on the current day isn't as important. So that's where we started with saying, okay, we're just going to refresh it once a night. Again, that's something that feedback can certainly contribute to changing. So we do have it set up in our infrastructure to do more, but you know, we're trying to work out our resources too. So we want to make sure that you know, if we are refreshing several times a day, we might run into downtime on our BI side. So we don't want to run into that issue. So it's all about balance.
All right. I was just going through and answering some that we've talked about, but at least they'd have an answer here. So Michael Jones, I know he was the one that was asking that question about once a day. So we may be changing that, Michael, just so you can know. If we just see how it's going first, I guess, before. Is that correct, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, we're monitoring, you know, multiple facets of this, including, you know, how long it takes to refresh, how much usage is happening during the day, what our hardware capacity is, and we kind of have to, like I said, we have to balance all that out. So we just, you know, as of last week is when we rolled out to all the accounts that are going to roll out. So we're still have our finger on the pulse in terms of we need to keep an eye on this and make sure our resources are behaving. So.
Awesome. Would you show some of the EMS side?
Sure. Yeah.
Just what it's doing.
Yeah, I mean the idea here is that. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention, I know we had a few questions that somebody was only seeing the incident, they didn't see EMS, and they had EMS, but it will be, from my understanding, guys, and correct me if I'm wrong here, to get the EMS, you have to have the full NMSIS 3 product. So I don't know that will it work. I don't think it will work with the just the one sheet.
I see. Yeah, and that's something. I apologize. That's a little gray for me too. So that's something that my understanding is like, yeah, if there's EMS, it's going to be there. But that's we can double check on that and
right.
Get back. Yeah. So for the EMS data, and really these reports too are you know, we gathered information from several people that are interested in this data and wanting to see certain things. And so what we've come up with from a BI perspective is like, okay, this is our first pass at what we think EMS reporting might be like. The thing to remember again is that BI is a living and breathing project essentially, and feedback is so important to us that we can add on to this. We can add more tabs to this. We can add more reports to our landing page. And so seeing this is more like, okay, this is now we're seeing our data in a BI through a BI lens. What else could we want? You know, what else could be here? So anyway, so for EMS procedures, this is an example of what we have. We have our procedures by time. This is the percentage of time that they show up at during the day. We also have it by weekday, so we can see if there's anything going on there. And we included a percent procedure successful metric here. So that goes for, you know, again, the interaction with all the visuals is the same. So if we want to look at airway, and let's say ventilations via mask, all the information updates at the same time. So really, as far as navigation and features go, they're going to be the same across all reports, including the slicers. Not that the slicers will be identical in all reports, but this slicer feature, you know, when you click the slicer button, it expands from the left, and you can go down and select what you'd like. Same with details. Pages are the same. I'll go over to the medications page, and we can see this is percent of administrations by hour. We can see oxygen. Oops, I accidentally clicked the header there. I can click on oxygen and we say, oh, there's our oxygen administrations for this time period, 18 to 2020. And yeah, that's what we have right now. And honestly, I have never been, I haven't been an EMT or anything, so for me, I'm looking at a lot of this and thinking, yes, it's interesting, but the specs were kind of made by others, and I built it, and this is our, like I said, our first pass. So you're going to know if it's more useful than I will. Oh, something to note on this one, actually, something that's interesting is that we have, this is a good example of the data quality on the back end. There's 5,300 administrations for this particular account we're looking at, but only 4,900 had responses. So any of the metrics that have to do with responses, like the percent successful, is based off the number of responses. So as I click through here and look at aspirin, you know, we're not looking at the 17% is not based on the 337. It's only based on the number of administrations that had where we recorded responses, including no response. So.
Then we just had a question about deployment to Ultra, and I said that it's being built, it's on the roadmap, but it's a little ways off still because of all the extra parameters and security.
Yeah, Ultra is a whole nother set of it's just a different environment. So we are working on Ultra right now. It's active and it will be released. I would like to say this quarter, but I'll say next quarter just to make sure that we're covering our bases. So.
All right, I did have information back that EMS will only work if it's an N3 account. So if it's a full NMSIS 3 account, that's the only, you know, when you'll see the EMS here. The other thing I was looking at is we had one guy mention that he did put in some feedback about on the slicers there, mainly on, I believe, the incident side, is to add a drop down for your response modes.
Yep, I actually saw that. Yeah, and that's on our. So basically, what we're doing is we're compiling a bunch of the feedback, and we're putting it into our releases. So we don't want to make changes every day because it would just be kind of chasing our tails doing that. But we basically have a little backlog, and it will turn into a very large backlog soon, where we're kind of going through and understanding the impact and understanding the demand, and then making calls on whether to add that. So response mode is one of them that we're on the incident side. Another one, as an example, this came from feedback too. Someone said they'd like to select, like they want to have an easier way of just selecting B and C. So and maybe shift isn't the right way to go. Maybe something a little bit bigger. So incident type is great. If we want to see everything but forest, woods, and wildland, right now the way we do that is we have to multi-select all of the things that are not that one. And someone said, "Is there an easier way to do that?" And yes, there certainly is, and we're going to add that in. And it's actually not very difficult on our side to add it in. We just didn't put it in this first pass. So that's another example of just simple feedback that came through that we will be implementing.
Okay, one quick thing here now. I guess to reiterate, we've had some confusion a little bit on the calls that are showing up here are only reviewed calls, or is it completed and reviews? Because we're getting some different
completed and reviewed. It has to be completed and reviewed for it to show.
So and what if it's not reviewed? It's just complete. Will it review?
It has to be reviewed.
Yeah. Has to be reviewed. Yeah, that's the big thing, because technically that's two. So if you say completed and reviewed, it means both of them are working, but just reviewed calls only.
So again, this feedback right here live is another great example of on our side, we know that it's reviewed and completed as required, and we know it's not including imports, but there's nowhere on this report that says that. So this feedback right here is telling us we need to be more clear on what's included in the report. So we're going to add that into our next whatever we do for our next report for this, we're going to add that in. So
no problem. I was just trying to make sure we get it our customers know, so we're not getting overwhelmed with like, okay, well, my completed reports are not showing. Well, they have to be reviewed. So once they're reviewed, then they'll show up here. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Michael, Kevin, anybody see any other questions that were?
There's one that I'm not sure I quite understand the context of. It says, do you plan in the future to be able to calculate regressions for future CFS predictability?
That is something. So I think I understand what they're saying. If we look at our, we have our trend line, or our time series going on here right now. We have instance by a month that we're looking at. Are we going to add the ability to take that and use the use like a linear regression or what have you to forecast in the future? That's something we're definitely looking at for Pro, because that's something you need to be able to control on the authoring side. That's not something they offer in the interface here yet. But yes, definitely for Pro, that's something we're looking at adding in. And the other part of that too is that when you are putting the option for a linear regression to do forecasting, that does assume a lot of things for the data itself. And that's something that we have to keep in mind when we are offering those types of options, is to say, okay, well, if you are doing this, your data, the assumptions on the data side are, check the boxes from statistics to say that this is a normal distribution and so on and so forth. But short answer is yes, it's something we're looking into for our Pro.
The last thing I see here is someone says, I've seen the permissions module and occupancy BI modules listed. Any idea on that?
Yeah, that's occupancy and training. We'll have a BI basic reports for those this quarter, so by the end of March.
Yep, currently being worked on.
Yep, we're working on those every day right now.
All right. Michael, do you see any questions? I'm not seeing everything. I think we've got a lot that was coming in. It's just starting to lock up a little bit.
Oh, it looks like everything's been answered so far.
All right.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody, for your time today and for checking this out. And please keep the feedback coming.
And Brian did say, yeah, that makes sense that it would be a Pro level feature there for what we were talking about or just a minute ago.
Excellent. All right.
All right.
Wrap this up.
That is great. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the presentation today. We also have, if you go on our support side, the new, I say new, it's the same we had, but we did split them up with the incident and EMS, so you will see that now. If you want to go show that, Derek, since you've got control, just go into support and you can see that
Right here
on the support site. Yes. If you don't have a username and stuff there, you'll need to do that. But everybody, if you don't have that, please go sign up for that. Sign up for it, get into the support side. It will be well worth for you. I'm gonna just take back.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm also
here.
relatively new to ER, so I don't think I have that
Right.
stuff for me.
I got you. No problem. Let me get in here real quick, and I will show those on there.
There's also a video, Mac, that I put together that sort of runs through the same, basically the same concepts of navigation and exporting and multi-selecting and that kind of thing. And I know that's on YouTube.
It's on here. So if we look here at the BI intelligence on the screen now.
I think all I can see is your teams.
All your teams is showing back.
Okay, let me change screens again. Okay, there we go. All right. So do you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, right here is where those are housed. We split that apart, and if you go into it and click in it, the video that we were talking about is right here.
Oh, perfect.
So it's on both of them. It's on this one and in the basic incidents. or in the basic NMSIS 3. So you can see we just took those apart. You can go into it and see what you have here. And then, like we said, it's agencies with NMSIS 3 will have the EMS statistics there. And this goes over exactly pretty good detail with what Derek just went over now. So, and we'll be housing when our putting those up as far as the training and occupancy sections come out, they'll be in this same place right under this here. Okay, and then like I said, on the NMSIS 3, the video is still there right here. All right. If we see any other questions or anything out there, anybody? Haven't seen any more coming in.
Okay.
All right. Well, all right. Well, thank you for joining us for this edition of Virtual Thursday. And we will record this and should have this recording up probably sometime tomorrow. So if you want to go back and view the recording, you'll be able to do that and see it in under support here. If you go to support, go all the way down to the bottom. I don't mean to make people dizzy, but just for time, go all the way down to the bottom and it'll be right here under webinars on demand. You'll see it on the very top. Let's say Virtual Thursday and the BI Basic Virtual Thursday we just done. Okay. If there's no other questions, nobody sees any, that's all we've got for today. If you have further questions, you can always email me at mac@emergencyreporting.com or send in a support ticket request like that. Or you can also send michael.bazzoni@emergencyreporting.com. We're the trainers here and we can get you some assistance. If we can't help you, we'll get you in touch with either Kevin, Dave, or Derek. All right. If there's no questions, I guess that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time for the next edition of Virtual Thursday.